But China is a big modern nation. It's got this huge population and this huge modernity that's come in the last 30 years. And we invested some money in China because we could get more value in terms of the strength of the enterprise and the price of the security than we could get in the United States. I think an old guy is entitled to invest where he wants to invest in.
Says crypto is a $2 trillion asset class. Are you willing to admit you missed something?
Well, I certainly didn't invest in crypto. I'm proud of the fact I've avoided it. It's like, some venereal disease or something. I just regard it as beneath contempt. Some people think it's modernity, and they welcome a currency that's so useful in extortions and kidnappings and so on, tax evasion. And of course the envy, everybody has to create his own new currency. And I think that's crazy too. So I'm not having any, I wish it had been banned immediately. And I admire the Chinese for banning it. I think they were right and we've been wrong to allow it. We have a stock market which some people use like a gambling parlor. And the transactions of the people who love the gambling parlor aspect of the business and those who want to make long-term investments to take care of their old age and so forth. I mean, you muddle it in one market and it goes out of control because the stock market becomes an ideal gambling parlor activity. I don't think that ought to have been allowed either. If I were the dictator of the world, I would have some kind of a tax on short-term gains that made the stock market very much less liquid and drove out this marriage of gambling parlor and legitimate capital development of the country. It's not a good marriage, and I think we need a divorce. When you throw money, when you print money on the scale that modern nations are printing it, Japan, the United States, Europe, etc., we're getting into new territory in terms of size. The Japanese bought back not only a lot of their own debt, but a lot of their common stocks. So the Federal Reserve System, you can't imagine how much money printing Japan has done. They haven't had all that much inflation, and it's still a very admirable civilization. There's never been anything quite like what we're doing now, and we do know from what's happened in other nations, if you try and print too much money, it eventually causes terrible trouble. And we are closer to terrible trouble than we've been in the past, but it may still be a long way off. I certainly hope so. When Volcker, after the 70s, took the prime rate to 20% and the government was paying 15% on its government bonds, that was a horrible recession. Lasted a long time, caused a lot of agony. And I certainly hope we're not going there again. I think the conditions that allowed Volcker to do that without an interference from the politicians were very unusual. And I think in 2020 hindsight, it was a good thing that he did it. I would not predict that our modern politicians will be as willing to permit a new Volcker to get that tough with the economy and bring on that kind of a recession. So I think the new troubles are likely to be different from the old troubles. The Mungers have Berkshire stock, Costco stock, Chinese stocks through Lilu, a little bit of Daily Journal stock, and a bunch of apartment houses. Do I think that's perfect? No. Do I think it's okay? Yes. I think the great lesson from the Mungers is you don't need all this damn diversification. That's plenty of, you're lucky if you've got 4 good assets.
The other part of that question was just your thoughts on COVID and Omicron here in the United States, where you think things stand, what we've been through.
Well, if we get lucky, it'll fade away to a minor problem. How much we kill 30,000 people a year with flu every year in the United States. Suppose it were 60,000 and it included Omicron, you know. I think we'd get used to it. If you're going to invest in stocks for the long term or real estate, of course there are going to be periods when there's a lot of agony and other periods when there's a boom. And I think you just have to learn to live through them. And as Kipling said, treat those two imposters just the same. You have to deal with daylight and night. Does that bother you very much? No. Sometimes it's night and sometimes it's daylight. Sometimes it's a boom, sometimes it's a bust. I believe in doing as well as you can and keep going as long as they let you. Now about 95% of it is going to disappear and go away forever. And what do we get in substitute? We get a bunch of people who attract an audience because they're crazy. I have my favorite crazies and you have your favorite crazies, and we get together and all become crazier as we hire people to tell us what we want to hear. This is no substitute for Walter Cronkite and all those great newspapers of yesteryear. We have suffered a huge loss here. It's nobody's fault. It's the creative destruction of capitalism. But it's a terrible thing that's happened to our country. And having these new journalists come in and tell the nuts on each side, the right-wing nuts and the left nuts, only what they want to hear, and slant all the facts so that they hear a lot of stuff that isn't so. This is not good for our republic, and I don't have the faintest idea what to do about it. Once you start a social safety net, everybody wants more and more of it. The people that have the loans, they want the loans forgiven. It gets to be a big body of people clamoring for money. Benjamin Franklin was suspicious of this. He said that when the citizens of a republic learn they can vote themselves money, the end of the republic is near. Well, it may not be as near as Benjamin Franklin thought, but it's probably closer. We're probably closer to the end than we were 200 years ago. In my whole adult life, I've never hoarded cash waiting for better conditions. I've just invested in the best thing I could find. And I don't think I'm going to change now. And the Daily Journal's used up its cash. Now, Berkshire has excess cash, quite a bit of excess cash. But it's not doing that because it thinks it knows how to time investments. It just can't find anything it can stand buying. So we don't have a solution to your problem. We're just coping with it as I've described. In the United States, the principal problem of the poor people is they're too fat. That is a very different place from what happened in the past. In the past, they were on the edge of starving. And what happens is, it's really interesting, is with all this enormous increase in living standards and freedom and diminishment of racial inequities and all the huge progress that has come, people are less happy about the state of affairs than they were when things were way tougher. And that has a very simple explanation. The world is not driven by greed, it's driven by envy. And so the fact that everybody's 5 times better off than they used to be, they take it for granted. All they think about is somebody else having more now, and it's not fair that he should have it and they don't. That's the reason that God came down and told Moses that you couldn't envy your neighbor's wife or even his donkey. I mean, even the old Jews were having trouble with envy. And so it's built into the nature of things. it's weird for somebody my age because I was in the middle of the Great Depression when the hardship was unbelievable. I was safer walking around Omaha in the evening than I am in my own neighborhood in Los Angeles after all this great wealth and so forth. So, and I have no way of doing anything about it. I can't change the fact that a lot of people are very unhappy and feel very abused after everything's improved by about 600% because there's still somebody else who has more. I have conquered envy in my own life. I don't envy anybody. I don't give a damn what somebody else has. But other people are driven crazy by it.